Former US President Donald Trump has been found guilty of all 34 counts of falsifying business records in a hush-money scheme to influence the result of the 2016 election. He's the first ever former president to be found guilty of felony crimes in America's history. He was accused of concealing a payment made by his lawyer to former adult film star Stormy Daniels to buy her silence ahead of the presidential election. Speaking outside the court after the verdicts had been read, Trump blasted the trial as a disgrace.
We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent.
But the Manhattan District Attorney said the only voice that matters is the voice of the jury.
While this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law and doing so without fear or favor.
Just minutes after Trump was convicted, the Biden campaign released a statement saying no one is above the law. This trial is just one of 6 cases, 4 criminal and 2 civil, that Trump is currently facing. He'll be sentenced on July the 11th and could face a prison sentence, although legal experts say a fine is the more likely outcome. Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has announced a €500 million military support package for Ukraine. He made the announcement during a trip to the southern port city of Odessa.
Die Ukraine steht unter Druck, weil die russischen Streitkräfte alles versuchen, die Länge der Front auszudehnen und damit ukrainische Kräfte zu binden. Aber es gelingen ihnen gleichzeitig keine wirklich nennenswerten, großen und vor allen Dingen nachhaltigen Durchbrüche.
Ukraine's frontline troops continue to face ammunition shortages in the face of a renewed Russian offensive in the northern region of Kharkiv, which was launched earlier this month. Russia has made some territorial gains, but Ukraine's ability to hold back Moscow's forces has been hampered by a lengthy delay in US military aid and Western Europe's inadequate military production, which has slowed crucial deliveries to the battlefield. In his nightly address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that new agreements with partners on air defenses and drone production are on the horizon.
Вже маємо частину підтверджень від лідерів щодо збільшення наших спроможностей ППО. І головне – реалізувати їх повністю і додати ще відповідних домовленостей.
Meanwhile, on Thursday, US President Joe Biden gave Kyiv the go-ahead to use American weaponry to strike inside Russia for the limited purpose of defending Kharkiv. But 2 anonymous US officials said that Washington's policy calling on Ukraine not to use American long-range missiles and other munitions to strike inside Russia has not changed. Palestinians in Jabalia have been searching for their belongings in the rubble of the refugee camp after the Israeli military withdrew from the area following a 3-week operation. Gaza's largest refugee camp, once home to more than 100,000 people, has been all but destroyed in an IDF mission to eliminate Hamas positions. The health ministry in Gaza says 53 Palestinians were killed and 357 others wounded in fighting across the Strip in the past 24 hours. Aid was airdropped into Gaza again on Thursday, with people rushing to landing areas to try to access food and other supplies. At a press conference in New York, the UN Secretary-General's spokesperson gave a grim assessment of the humanitarian situation in the Strip.
Intensifying hostilities and severe access constraints continue to impede aid operations in Gaza at a time where hundreds of thousands of people need life-saving aid.
But the Biden administration insists that Israel's military action in Rafah is not the major operation officials have been threatening for weeks.
We've been clear about what this isn't, which is not a major military operation. I'm not going to categorize it into one box or another. This is obviously a very dynamic and fluid situation. We're going to continue to consult with our partners in Israel and engage on these issues.
Meanwhile, families continue to stream out of Rafah in search of safer areas elsewhere in the enclave. The UN estimates that around 900,000 people have fled the city since the start of Israel's limited military operation. A volcano in Iceland has continued to erupt for a second day, but authorities say winds are expected to carry poisonous gas pollution away from the capital Reykjavik. Iceland's Met Office says the eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula, the fifth since December, is the most powerful since volcanoes in the area became active again after lying dormant for more than 800 years. The town of Grindavik is again subject to an evacuation order for the handful of people who returned to their homes after an eruption earlier this year.
A series of scandals and spying allegations are jeopardizing the EU election campaign of Germany's AfD party. They were expected to be the driving force of Europe's far right and presented themselves as the only patriotic force in Germany.
Wir sind eine patriotische Partei für unser Land. Wir sind eine patriotische Partei für Deutschland.
The most serious allegation surrounds the party's top candidate and MEP, Maximilian Krah. At the end of April, his assistant was arrested on suspicion of passing information to China. Police later searched Krah's office. 1 week ago, AfD was finally expelled from the far-right European group Identity and Democracy after Krah gave an interview saying not all SS members were criminals. Experts say recent scandals spoiled AfD's image in Germany.
In diesem Wahlkampf ist eine zentrale Erzählung der AfD ins Wanken gekommen, nämlich dass sie die einzig patriotische Kraft in Deutschland sei. Wenn sie aber Propaganda für Russland macht, wenn sie einen Spion aus China in den eigenen Reihen hat, dann ist das alles andere als patriotisch, dann ist es eigentlich ein Verrat am eigenen Vaterland in ihren Worten gesprochen. Und von daher muss sie jetzt schon sich diesem Vorwurf gefallen lassen, ob sie tatsächlich eine Kraft ist, die sich für Deutschland einsetzt oder aber für Interessen aus dem Ausland.
The party's number 2, Petr Bristron, also faces an investigation over allegations he may got money from a pro-Russian network.
We have seen far-right politicians and lead candidates from AfD in Germany in the pockets of Russia. They are selling their souls on Russian propaganda outlets and videos.
AfD's hardcore voters probably won't be put off by recent news. However, the scandals could sway away those right-wing or conservative voters who haven't made up their mind yet.
Belgium is headed for a triple election, with voters casting ballots to elect a new federal parliament, regional parliaments and members of the European Parliament, all on the same day. Millions of paper election ballots are also already being boxed up and shipped out across the country. The INI Group is responsible for printing and preparing about 8 million ballots for the elections.
Yes, we hope that it will always be a paper ballot, or even more in the future. We saw the example of the Netherlands, where they came back to paper voting. I think in Wallonia they also came back to paper because many of the people are quite afraid of the digital way, that there might be some infractions in one or another way. There's also the pricing issue, which the paper, working with the paper is cheaper than the digital way to do this.
Flemish nationalists are predicted to win what the country calls the mother of all elections. In Wallonia, the French-speaking southern half, Social Democrats and the far left have dominated the campaign. Elections will be held on June the 9th.
Buenos días, soy Gloria Muñoz. Llevo 35 años en una tienda pequeñita de barrio, en el barrio Salamanca de Madrid, Y bueno, si fuera europarlamentaria, cambiaría muchas cosas. En primer lugar, ayudaría muchísimo más de lo que se hace al pequeño comercio, porque si se hace un estudio, el pequeño comercio, por lo menos en Madrid, está desapareciendo. Está, pues eso, todas las compañías grandes, no voy a nombrar porque, bueno, pero están haciendo que el pequeño comercio no se pueda defender y tenga que ir cerrando poco a poco e ir desapareciendo tiendas pues que llevan toda la vida y que ya, bueno, pues quedamos muy poquita.
Hi, I am Marta Barandi, candidate for European elections with 4U. If I am elected as an MEP, I will stand for a stronger Europe, for migration based on European values, but most and foremost, for entrepreneurs. As entrepreneur myself, I believe that individual entrepreneurship should be encouraged. And in terms of taxation and in terms of administration, the burden should be less. And of course, the social justice for entrepreneurs should be the same as for employees. They should receive same rights as employees when they lose their business. It is not fair for entrepreneurs who create working places and who add value to society to be in worse conditions than those who work.